All right. So we're going to talk about the syllabus. So right here, course syllabus, if you click it, this comes up. And this acknowledges, please read this now, please read the knowledge. And when you have read it entirely, please click the acknowledge button. So just saying, yeah, okay, I did read the assignment, or sorry, I read through this. So it's kind of like a mini assignment, not a true assignment. A lot of the same information you saw other places is here. So you have me, Rebecca Guevara, my email, rguevara69@alamo.edu, my office in Biloxi 313G. So if you've not ever been to Biloxi before, or Biloxi is, let me see, it's the big building that is like right down from the JECA. So our, not JECA, right down from our little high school. So if you just keep going down the road there, right from the parking lot, there's this big building there. That is Biloxi. So you go to the third floor. If you go one way, you're locked out because you're supposed to have a key. If you keep going around but back to where there's that cafeteria and there's an elevator back there and a staircase, if you go straight up that staircase 3 floors or you use that elevator, it actually opens right up into that suite of offices. And that's where I am. And I'm actually along one of the windowed sides, like right on a corner. And it should be easy to find because there's math stuff stuck to my wall and everything. Like I said, same office hours, about 9:40 to 11:50 on Monday, Wednesday, about 9:30 to 12:20 on Tuesday, Thursdays. This is my phone number if you need to call me in my office. For the most part, unless it's this time, you're probably not going to catch me there. Preferred method of contact would be through my email or through Canvas because that I see faster and can answer quicker. And then hopefully that still works, but that is my CV if you cared to see that. Okay, so your book. So there was a little bit of an issue with the ISBN because it changed at some point, but I didn't know. This is the ISBN that's actually for your access to my math lab. And you don't really need to worry about this because you should already have access. So students will have access to, sorry, my lab math, not my math lab, that needs to change too. So part of what Alamo Colleges does is it pays for your books and all that stuff. So this should have already been covered for you. You should not have to pay anything out of pocket. And I'll show you how to get to that, like I said, in a separate video. You'll need a calculator. I would recommend it should be a TI-30. I would recommend a TI-30, but like I said, there's going to be some online options for you that are a little easier to use. But if you have to go to testing centers or anything like that a lot, I would recommend getting a TI-30 because that'll be easier to convince them to let you use. Though I have let them, told them to let you use cell phones, and so far it's been working okay. 3-ring binder just to keep your stuff all together. It's just a recommendation. You know, caps and paper and stuff like that. You want to able to keep notes. A lot of you are online, so if you keep notes online, that's fine as well. So purpose of this course, you're going to have the, like I said, the 0214 is also part of that. So there is actually a separate syllabus for that one. But what that one's going to have is pretty much all the same material. It's just you're going to have some stuff that you covered before this. But basically what we're going to be covering is just different kinds of functions. We're going to be talking about what is a function and aspects of functions. We're going to talk about polynomials, rationals, linear equations, exponentials, logarithmic functions. I think I said radicals. Yes, I have radicals in there. And then we could talk about graphing, finding solutions to polynomials. We actually really find solutions because we're recognizing and solving problems of all these kinds. So we're really solving all kinds of problems. And then we want to be very last thing. This is going to be a really quick one and probably the most annoying one, but we're also going to talk about solving systems of equations. So your setup is those worksheets that I showed you before where you can download them and then fill them up and then upload them again. That is 5% of your grade. So it's basically a way of keeping track that you are being able to go through videos, do your worksheets. This is the closest we can get to saying, yeah, you were in class and you did the work. So we have these just worksheets for you to work on. These are going to be credit, no credit for the most part. what we're really looking for is that you do complete all the problems and you make an attempt at least a really good attempt at doing all of them correctly. Discussion boards. So discussion boards are also another 5%. And that's like a quick check-in. And I showed you that. You just go in there, you read the prompt, write, say what you want to say, and then reply to somebody else's post. If you do both things, you do what I ask you to do, like tell me 3 things about yourself, tell me about your favorite book, something like that. If you tell me that and then you respond to someone else's post, you get credit for that as well. So 10% of your grade's pretty easy. Homework is going to be the MyLab Math, or what we keep calling the MML. That is going to be all that stuff that goes through Pearson. Like I said, there's going to be a video going through that as well. The way that is set up is, like I had said before, all your homework is going to be due the following Wednesday. So everything for this first week would be due September 3rd, right? Yes, I was trying to remember that's next Wednesday. So after the due date, the assignment will remain open. I'll explain the weirdness of trying to get to it through Canvas, but it should stay open. It's just there's going to be 2% grading penalty. And it should be only affecting questions that you didn't answer in time. So if you answered something, you want to go back and fiddle with it for practice, it shouldn't affect your grade. If it does, just send me a message, because occasionally weird things happen and things don't go the way they're supposed to. Settings don't like to stay the way they're set up. You lose 2% each day past the due date, and that should only apply to questions that you did not answer. So if you answered, like you had 10 questions and you answered 8 of them before the due date, those 8 don't face a grading penalty. The 2 you didn't finish, those will have the grading penalty. I don't plan on moving due dates unless I have to, because there's a problem and I have to move it for everybody. And usually that's going to be something big, like when we had the big AT&T internet crash thing, then I had to move everything because nobody can access anything for a couple days. So that's pretty drastic cases that I'd move that. Quizzes, you'll have a quiz that's due pretty much every Friday with the exception of this first week, Thanksgiving week, and any week where we have an exam. Quizzes are going to cover material from the previous weeks. I'll drop the lower 2. And I'll put this on the quiz for you to see it, but usually what they are is they're set up for about 30 minutes and you have 2 attempts at it. So you do 1 attempt and then you exit the quiz and then you can have a second attempt at it, and your highest grade is the one that we keep. Exams work similar to how quizzes are going to be. So you should have 3 exams throughout the semester, not counting a final exam, and that is 30% of your grade. Each exam is going to cover roughly about 3 to 4 weeks of material. We got some wiggling around we had to do because of days that college is closed, but generally it should be 3 to 4 weeks. If you miss an exam, like quizzes, there's no makeup. You miss it, but I'm going to drop 2 of them anyway. Homework, you miss it, but you still go back and do it for a grading penalty. Exams are the only things where I will actually go back and reopen things to give you some time. And that's only if you have a good excuse why you didn't miss it, because for the most part, your exams are going to be open. So the week you'll have an exam, it'll be open that Wednesday, and then it'll close the following Monday. So it gives you, 5 days that you can work on it. So there really shouldn't be a reason that you miss it in that 5-day period. So you'd need to have a really good excuse about why you couldn't make it. So if you could not take it online in that 5-day period, you have a week until when it was given in class to make it up. So essentially the way this is written, because I'm trying to explain a little bit, because we're usually going to open on Wednesday. If we get through Wednesday and it closes and you didn't get to it, then the next week you're going to have that same time period again up open that you can get it in. Oops. Sorry, something did look funky there. Oops, there we go. So like I said, it'll just move to the next week, and it'll just be for, everybody won't see it open. I can just open it for those few people who may need it. But like I said, you need to have a good excuse for that, because I'm not going to just open for it. I forgot. It has to be, like something really legitimately happened. All right, and then the last thing is final exam, which there will be no makeup on a final exam because pretty much December 13th, classes are over. There's no more I can do. So this would be the last week of class. I'll find it here on the syllabus for you. I'll tell you exactly what the week is. But it's the very last week of class. You will have a cumulative exam. So where these exams cover about 3 to 4 weeks of material, this covers the whole entire course. So it'll be 15 weeks of material. And the questions can come from any topic in the course. And basically, I'm going to make sure I cover your the list of things that we definitely had to cover. So it'll be definitely something covering, like how do we find roots? How do we solve a system of equations? Like things about a function, things about solving different kinds of functions. So there will be certain problems that have to be on there, but basically just expect anything could be there. Grading scale, so as long as you're in the 90s, you're an A. As long as you're in the 80s, you're a B. As long as you're in the 70s, you're a C. 60s is a D, and anything below that is failing. That being said, in my experience, this here, A through C, is going to most likely transfer. And depending on your program, this here, A through D, is passing. So like I said, depending on your program, as long as you're between an A and a D, the course is considered passed. You'll probably get credit for it for Alamo colleges. Doesn't mean that it's not going to transfer. I always tell everybody attempt a C or more because that guarantees, usually it satisfies most requirements from most programs. There's a few exceptions, like nursing has a very strict, rigid rules and things like that. For the most part, it should cover most programs if you're a C or above, and it should transfer. I say should, I can just tell you kind of what happens in the state of Texas. Outside of that, who knows? Basically, the course policy is pretty simple. You're expected to watch the videos and fill out the weekly worksheets. And those need to be in by the next Monday. Those biosigs, like I said, you need to do those on Wednesday each week because I'm going to use that to report attendance. If you're like off by a few days, it'll probably be fine. But like if you wait 3 weeks and then you try to do the biosig, then yeah, that's not going to count. I just won't put a grade in for you. So you'll just be kind of an absence, meaning I just won't put in a grade. Even if you, like I said, if you do it 3 weeks later, it has to be for that week. And it's not a grade. It's keeping a track of your attendance. So if we have to make a report on you, that's where your attendance is going to come from. You are expected to respond to discussion boards each week. You will be assigned homework from Pearson every week, and you should be complete it by the due date, or you face that 2% grading penalty. And like I said, that is like due every next Wednesday. If you miss a week, so let's say you don't report in, you don't do anything for a whole week or even more than that, please email me and let me know, because we don't know if you dropped off the face of the earth and you're just not coming back to classes. We don't know if you're just sick. But it gives us a plan of what we can do to help you keep going with the course and being successful if something happens and you couldn't be there for a week, like you had a surgery or something like that. Assignments will not be accepted after the final exam date. So the final exam, basically after December 13th, is the last time we accept anything. Due dates will not be changed for individuals. I'm sorry, I was interrupted. I lost my place. Oh yeah, so if you missed a week, assignments won't be accepted after December 13th, because that's the last day of class, and we pretty much have to have your grades in, I think by Monday, so we barely have any time. We can't accept anything late. Due dates, so like I said, they will not be changed for individuals. With the exception, there are a few exceptions, which you'll see later here. So like I said, the exams, if you had to miss, and like I said, you had a really good excuse of why you couldn't make it into that 5-day window, then you might see an individual change for you. If you have an accommodation that gives you extra time, you should be seeing that at some place. If you do not, then send me an email, because maybe I just didn't get your accommodation, or it got missed. Makeups, We already talked about that. So you just need to do it within the week of the exam. You have to good excuse. So, you know, like there was an illness, you lost your childcare and your kid's been sitting there screaming at you for the whole week. Believe me, I've been there. You have some sort of surgery, court dates, anything like that. That just keeps you unable to access classes and get online. I may ask you for some sort of proof of these events. It depends like what we're talking about, what's going on. But usually like the first one, you get a good pass on. If it's something that occurs over and over again, then yeah, I'll probably start asking you for proof that you had to miss for a legitimate reason. Like I said, some policies are waived for those accommodations. Like I said, due dates is mostly what it's going to be, and some time to take to finish things, certain assignments. You're expected to be respectful to others in the class. So like when you're on discussion boards or anything like that, please be nice to each other. Usually everyone is, but you know, occasionally stuff happens. So mostly this is applying to just being nice to other people in your class. Preferably, please be polite to me as well. If we had tutors, I don't believe we're going to have one, so we don't have to worry about that, or guess. Sometimes we get a tutor, but I don't think we have one. Please come to me if you're experiencing any difficulties in the class. If you are having problems, it is quicker to go to me and we work it out than trying to go through somebody else, because you try to go through somebody else, they're trying to contact me, and it just turns into a mess. So if something's not working right, come to me first. And if it's still not working right, it probably means there was a miscommunication. It's usually that's the biggest thing that keeps us from getting things done, is there's a miscommunication about what's happening. And then an AI statement, which is basically saying you can use AI like tutoring. So there's AI tutors, that is fine. Do not use AI to do your assignments for you. Because then once you get to things like doing exams and stuff like that, you're gonna have you're not gonna know the material because you didn't study. So that's generally why that AI statement is up there. And technically using AI to generate work for you that you turn in is considered essentially like cheating. It's being dishonest. And it can get you in trouble. All right. So anything in the bold, that is your 0214 topics. So that is the stuff that is your co-rec material. Anything that's not bold, that is just your normal course material. So you see like in the 4th week, we have exam 1, and then 8th week, exam 2, 12th week, exam 3, and then 16th week is our final exam. So I just put a list here of the units we should be covering. You may not have necessarily homework in all these. There's a few of them. Like I believe this, which one is it? I think it's one of these ones here. There is a little bit, like there might be homework, but not necessarily extra videos, because this was just a little bit of extra to work on. Here's the last part, here we go. And then, like I said, your final exam, December 8th. I was trying to remember if it was December 8th when it starts. So between the 8th and the 13th, that's your last week's class. That's when your final exam will come up. All right, so the rest of this is just your institutional policies. We have a smart start. So basically, if you don't like come to class, like your first session or your first week, there's a good possibility you maybe just be dropped from our course completely. So we want to make sure that you get in there right away and start doing something that says, yeah, I'm in this class and I'm participating, because otherwise I'm going to have to report that you weren't there. And like I said, on fully online courses, and attendance verification is assigned and must be completed by the 3rd day of class. I said it on a Wednesday, hoping that everybody doesn't wait the last minute, but like if you have to wait till Thursday, put it in, that's fine. Try to take a 3-peat rule. There's another one in here that it's important for us. Student engagement possibilities, student access. Okay. Yep, that was it. So like I thought there was one more in here, but maybe we don't have it. I think we don't have it anymore. Yeah, that's just the big one to think about, but go through the rest of these. Like we have a 3-peat rule and things like that. Basically, you don't want to keep failing classes, because if you do, then you get charged more. And basically you're responsible to keep active and talk to your instructors and things like that. It's not my job to constantly have to try to reach out to everybody because that's a lot of people. It's probably your job to reach out and make sure things are going well for you. Like I said, if you have issues, up here at the top, you do have my email, so you can email me if you're having any problems with the course.